Dawn, a great basketball environment at Frost Arena on Thursday, and tie game after one, and then your team finds Kate Liveringhouse. Because, I mean, I know Kate, her numbers were really gaudy, but her teammates were finding her, too. And so her 18 points were a combination of a lot of things.
Well, they were, and I thought Kate did a really nice job of getting out and getting a couple scores in transition. She got a couple at the block, but she also hit a couple tough contested threes or shots on the perimeter that gave us a little bit of confidence. You know, it wasn't as if she wasn't guarded. It was she stuck some pretty tough shots.
And you talked about your defense after the game, and the points off of turnovers was so lopsided in this game, and that speaks not only to your defense but your transition as well. And you needed defense in an environment like that.
Well, you need defense in an environment like that because you really can't hear a whole lot of what's going on. You know, your players are on their own in a lot of respects because they can't hear from the sideline. So it's not as if you're going to run a certain play that's going to necessarily catch them off guard and you're going to score, you know, a surprise basket. That doesn't happen in that type of environment. It doesn't happen with that type of a team defensively. So we have to be really, really solid, hold them down to the best of our ability, and try to get out and run. And I think some of that's just a function of, you know, with the personnel that we have this year, we're not really big, and so we've got to play to what suits us best.
So you come out of the locker room at halftime, you have a lead, you got to know they've got to run in them somewhere, but then you come out and you nail back-to-back threes to start the third quarter. That had to be exactly what you needed at that point.
Well, you're exactly right, Jeff, in that we knew that South Dakota State has made some terrific runs out of either timeouts, beginning of quarters, beginning of the second half, and so we challenged our kids a little bit defensively to make sure that they were aware. And by challenging them, I mean just making them aware of how South Dakota State gets going on quick runs and how important it is to be really solid defensively. In the second half of games, sometimes it's harder to be as good defensively because they're away from your bench. So they can't, even if they can hear you about how you're communicating, how you're, you know, guarding certain situations, they can't hear you in the second half anywhere. And so they're on their own. And I thought our young ladies really dug down and found ways to get some stops, which allowed us, you know, to get some score opportunities. But that's a tough thing to do because South Dakota State not only averages 80 points a game, but they hold their opponents down to close to 60 points a game or under 60 points a game.
I know gut check gets overused a lot in sports, but when they're going on a 10-0 run and they pulled within one, as you looked around in the eyes of your players, did they seem the least bit rattled? Because it would have been very easy to lose your composure in that environment when they're going on that kind of a run.
Well, it's interesting because one of our young ladies was being interviewed about the environment at Frost Arena before the game, and she was having a hard time either saying frazzled or whatever it was, and she said you get fuddled. And that's kind of what puzzled, that's what it was. You feel fuzzled when you're in that kind of environment. So we laughed about that prior to the game, but that's kind of how you can feel. And what I thought was really impressive is that when we took a timeout, and I think it was a 1-point game at that point in time, and they had made a significant run. Things weren't really going for us. We were struggling to get some good opportunities in a half-court offense. We weren't getting stops anymore in a half-court defense. We were getting called for some fouls. We were fouling them. All of a sudden, things had really started to swing. And when we call that timeout, they come to the bench. We tell them, listen, we need to get stops right now. And then we stop for a little bit, and we all just kind of stare at each other for a second, and then we start smiling. And we say, hey, guys, guess what? We're the team that has a lead.
Yeah.
We're okay. Take a deep breath. We're fine. But it was that, in looking at our players' eyes at that point in time, realized we have a chance to have some composure and find a way to still come out in this type of situation. And that's exactly what they did. And as you know, Jeff, it's a tough place to do that in. And it's a tough opponent to do it against wherever you play them.
Well, and I've seen so many coaches interviewed after games there, and they all talk about, well, geez, Oklahoma couldn't win here, and Louisville barely won here, so I don't know, how we expected to do well. Or J.D. Gravina pretty much said that. And so for you guys to go into that environment and come away with a win, facing the adversity you faced in the second half, says a lot for the intensity of your group.
Well, it does, and I think it says a lot about the toughness that our young ladies have. But at the same time, all we can do at this point in time is look at that and build off of that and continue to get better, because we played South Dakota State again, but before we play them, we've got some really good opponents in Western Illinois who's hot, and North Dakota State. And so what we were really concerned about after that game was how do we move forward? How do we put our foot on the gas pedal and move forward? Because I think before the game, people in the state want to make it a really big deal, which is so much fun for our players and coaches to be a part of. And then after the game, they want to make it a really big deal, which at that point in time, we have to move on. And it's a tough part because you want to be in the precious present, you want to enjoy it, you want to celebrate success, but hey, we have a game in less than 48 hours we need to get ready for.
We saw the men struggle with trying to regain their composure after an emotional win over South Dakota State when they went to Denver, and Craig Smith admitted, it was a big concern of mine. What was your level of concern going to Denver on Saturday after that win in Brookings?
Oh, a huge level of concern for two reasons. One, the emotional part of it. Two, I just think the quick turnaround and you're back on the road. And we made the decision to come home on Thursday night and to let our kids sleep in their beds and allow our coaches to get through the film that night and get laundry done and practice the next morning and get back on the road. And, when you're in the middle of it, when you plan it ahead of time, I think that's the best case scenario for our young ladies to get recovered. They're back at home. They can be in our weight room in terms of doing some mobility things to get recovered. They can be in our ice tubs to help their bodies recover. They can sleep in their beds. From a recovery standpoint, it seemed like the best decision. But then when you get home at midnight and you have to turn around and practice and leave in a couple hours, as a coach, you're not so sure that that's the best idea ever. And so what happened is we practiced, we watched film on Friday morning of our game against Denver and some things, new wrinkles Denver was throwing out there. And Denver was playing really, really well. In the game before we played Denver, they had played Western Illinois and scored 93 points. So now not only are you playing on the road in a tough environment after an emotional win, but now you're doing it against a team that's hot and can really shoot it. Is it surprising? I know we talk about this a lot, Jeff, in the Summit League in women's basketball, how well teams shoot it from the arc. It's like a broken record. But in the game before we played Denver, Denver plays Western Illinois, and they set the NCAA record in Division I women's basketball for the number of threes made in a game at 36. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It just is.
Yeah.
It is. So really, it was a major concern for our young ladies, but they did a great job of understanding and executing.
And you got off to the start you needed to get off to alleviate some of those concerns. Your defense played very well. You forced a ton of turnovers in that first quarter. Then Kira Duffy went on a scoring run. And so you really, I guess, right away probably alleviated some of those fears.
You're exactly right. I thought we kind of calmed ourselves down, didn't really know how we'd come out of the gates and how we would play. And last year, we did not play well in Denver on their home court. We just didn't. And so we have that kind of in the back of your mind. You want to suppress it, but it's there still. And exactly right. We came out, we got some stops, and we got out in transition, and we built the lead early in the game. And then, basketball is a game of swings and momentum, and they made some runs and we made some runs, but we were able to stay separated, which kind of gave us some breathing room, and it gave us an opportunity when Kate Liveringhouse got in foul trouble in the third quarter early. Maddie McKeever picked up her third foul early. Jasmine got a little bit banged up in the third quarter, and so we were able to just kind of keep those young ladies on the bench and see if we needed to go back and play them, which J.C. Bradley came back into the starting lineup for us. She played really, really well. She played some more significant minutes. Kira Duffy played extremely well. Allison Arns played extremely, extremely well. And then I thought we got some very good minutes out of some kids off the bench, Chloe Lamb, Taylor Frederick, and Monica Arns. And as you go into the second round of conference play, it's so important, and with the way that we play, it's so important that we have other kids that are getting significant minutes and continuing to get better. What's amazing about this team, and this just is almost mind-boggling to me as a coach, is that during the course of the year, we've had 9 different players lead us in scoring this year, 9 in a game, out of our 12 players that are healthy and eligible to play. And you saw it in Kate Liveringhouse, who started the season playing and hitting shots and making those things happen, and then came back to that at their game on Thursday against South Dakota State. And now we go into the next game, and Kate's kind of lagged with foul trouble and only plays 9 minutes. So it's interesting with this team, and it was good in that game against Denver to have other young ladies have a chance to get on the court, see significant playing time, and play well with it.
So after all the emotion and logistics of last week, it's got to feel a little nicer to know you've got 2 at home this week.
It's a coaching friend of mine, one of my mentors for many, many years, has always said, your players will play like you feel. And I think about that an awful lot. Well, when I woke up on Monday morning, I knew where it was. I knew that I was at home, but I couldn't have told you what day of the week it was. So when we saw our players yesterday and they kind of had that look in their eye like, oh, my goodness, we're kind of still spinning a little bit. It's not because of, still the emotion of it,
Sure.
just the fatigue of being on the road and doing those kind of things. So from that standpoint, it's so important, Jeff, that we have a good week at home now and we get recovered and we get back to playing how we want to play, which is we've been playing really well. But when you have that stretch and all that, the physicality, I think the physicality of the Summit League is something that most people, I think, underestimate, certainly on the women's side. I think these women are getting after and they're playing, but, man, even the Denver game where a couple of kids got knocked around, knocked to the floor aggressively, not dirty plays, just physical plays. And so for us to be able to kind of get our second wind about us is really important right now.
So you got Western Illinois coming out on Thursday. This is a team that's been inconsistent, but this is not the same team that you throttled at their place. I mean, they have figured it out now, and they've won 2 in a row, and Emily Clemens is back playing the way we know Emily Clemens can play. She's the player of the week in the conference. She had 39 against Denver. Higginbotham had 26. Bloomers now had 28 in a couple of straight games. And so this is a team that is back to being the dangerous team that I think you thought you were going to see when you went to Macomb.
Well, they are an incredibly, incredibly dangerous team. They go on the road and they beat a ranked team at Stanford. They are a team that obviously won the Summit League last year. They're a team that is so dangerous. So 2 games ago against Denver, they make 18 threes. The next game against North Dakota State, they make 19 threes. Emily Clemens scores 39 points, is 1 rebound away it was 1 assist away from a triple-double. This team has so much firepower that it's a challenge to slow them down offensively. But then they play a zone that's different than anything else that you face, and they have a shot blocker inside in Olivia Brown, and that it's such a different style on both ends of the court that your players have to be really, really solid. And honestly, a couple things have to go your way.
Do you have to remind your kids, let's forget how lopsided the score was the first time? This is a better team than that?
Oh, definitely. And I think I'm hoping that yesterday we didn't practice as a team. We lifted and trying to get their bodies back and recovered. And so today that certainly will be the message is, this is a team that is really, really hot. This is a team that's just knocking down shots right now. And I think when I even talk about Western Illinois, I think people think about them, you hear how many threes they make, but what you forget is that they also get to the free throw line 19 times a game. Why? Because you have to get out and extend and get some ball pressure on the perimeter. And then you do that, and now they drive it to the basket. They're not really a team that posts up, but they drive it aggressively to the basket, or they'll slip someone to the basket or curl someone to the basket. And so they get the ball around the rim an awful lot, which then gets them back to the free throw line. And I thought when we played them last year, we gave them really everything. We gave them opportunities at the arc, and we gave them opportunities at the rim, and they got to the free throw line against us both times. Last time that we played against them, we were able to control the free throw line area a whole lot better by not fouling them. And that is something certainly that I think they have done a great job of getting back to who they are. And they're really comfortable. They played extremely well in our facility last year. We always say it's a shooter's gym, and sometimes, unfortunately, it's just as much of a shooter's gym for our opponents as it is for us.
And then North Dakota State on Saturday, and this is a team that certainly has tried to spread it around more this year. It's more than just Taylor Thunstead this year. They're shooting the ball better. They're not getting a lot of point production, but their biggest problem has been turnovers, and that's something you really exploited against them the first time around. 22 times you turned them over. They've committed 36 in the last 2 games, and so right now they're still trying to figure it out offensively.
Well, and I think one of those games was against Western Illinois, and that is a completely different style than we play. And so that part of it, we can't necessarily look at that film and try to replicate it because it's not who we are. So what we do is we look back at our film and try to see what worked. And honestly, I thought in the first half, we did a really nice job defensively, which led to our opportunities to get out and score. But in the second half, they were able to we weren't as able to turn them over. And that was a struggle for us. So it's still a dangerous team because they can score it inside. They've got so many physical post kids, but they can also stretch the floor and shoot it from the arc or penetrate, kick and then start reattacking and make you really space. And I think they're a really, really dangerous team that's trying to put together how exactly they want to play, if that makes sense. You know, they've been changing some lineups, making some adjustments, and sooner or later, you know, when coaches do that, when something sticks, they get rolling. And so what we're trying to do is do our best to ensure that doesn't get started against us.